Welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Hey guys, welcome back to Fast Keto and welcome to today's episode. We have Luis Villasenor joining us today, and I've been so looking forward to doing this episode with Luis. He is an expert in all things fitness, bodybuilding. He's the founder of Keto Gains, and he is really passionate about building, optimizing your muscle, your bone mass, and shedding fat and enhancing your body composition for overall metabolic health. I got to meet him in Mallorca in November at the Low Carb Universe conference, and he really has some great tips for anyone out there, especially women that he works with who are looking to build their muscle, get healthy, toned, and reduce fat. And we had a fascinating topic all about that today, the best ways to optimize your body composition, to burn fat, and his personal story as well in going from an overweight sort of early teen to finding such incredible health and fitness in his life, and how he did it and exactly how he does keto today. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode with Luis as much as I enjoyed recording it. Good morning, Luis. Thank you so much for joining us today on Fast Keto. It's great to have you here with us.
Thank you, Vanessa, for having me. It's an honor. I was glad to have met you a few months ago in Mallorca, and it's very nice to be chatting with you again here.
Yeah, I'm so glad. It was so fun, to meet you there. We met very briefly, but it was kind of funny. I went up for a plunge in the cold pool, which I was inspired to do by Maria because she was doing all that cold plunging. And then afterwards, I kind of discovered that there was like this hot tub and came down, and Maria and Craig and you and your partner were there. And I kind of like floated over to you guys, just like being pulled into the conversation. And, we were talking about high protein and keto. And so I knew I wanted to talk more with you about it. And so glad that we could do it on air and talk about a lot of different topics that I think are really pertinent and you have some expertise on. But to start off with, I really want to hear about your story because I've actually heard it myself on a couple of other podcast interviews that I've listened to, but I think you have a fascinating story that a lot of people could relate to, in terms of where you came from, different things that you tried, and then how you found what works for you.
Sure. Well, I'm going to try to keep this brief because, again, otherwise we can be in these 4 hours, right? I really started this out of being curious. I'm one of those persons that likes to understand the workings of everything. So when I was a small kid, I was a little on the heavy side, and always wanted to be thin, and I always wanted to be into sports. But the reality is that I was really not that much attracted to team sports. Right? I was the classic fat guy in school that was never picked up for sports. So you probably can get a little bit of a picture. But I remember asking my mother to take me to a dietitian or a nutritionist to help me lose weight. And when she took me to the nutritionist, the first thing that struck me as odd was that she was a very overweight person. So for me, it didn't make any sense. How is this? It was like I was like 12 or 10 years at a time. I don't recall very well, but again, kids are always honest, right? So I told her bluntly in her face, like, why are you fat? And why are you going to tell me how to lose weight? Like, shouldn't you be able to lose weight if you already know all of this. So of course that didn't go very well. And yeah, she gave me a diet plan, etc. That didn't really work so well for me because she gave me, a classic white sheet of paper with breakfast, snack, lunch, another snack, dinner, and she didn't really explain me a lot of stuff. She just gave me a list of foods that I could eat, certain amount of them, and she gave me lots of options that I could exchange. But in the end, it all boiled down to use a little bit of how you like stuff, and if you extrapolate that to how kids actually like stuff. We have a saying here in Spanish in Mexico, right? She told me, for example, eat eggs as at your leisure. So for me, at my leisure was, well, eat 3 eggs with I don't know, 1 pound of tortillas, for example. So you can imagine how that went. I didn't really lose any weight. Didn't work. So I decided to take things into my own hands, and I started to read, try to research, and how to lose weight. At the time, again, there was no internet, so it was quite difficult to get information on your own. Even more if you live in Mexico and there's really not that much information. I had to go to encyclopedias or go to to the library and try to read stuff. And so that sparked my interest in nutrition. Started strength training. I lost some weight, but I really didn't look like I wanted to look. So then came a time that I went into college. I was already, again, not fat anymore, but I was chubby. And because the pressure of the university, some other stuff going on in my life at the time, I then decided to stop eating, and that worked because I started losing a lot of weight. But then again, imagine that I ended up weighing 48 kilos. So that didn't was it was like I went the whole other direction, right? I hadn't any energy. I was sleepy all the time. I just went to school, studied, then went back home, slept. That was basically my life for probably about a year and a half. So I thought like I hit rock bottom, and it came to me that what I was doing wasn't working because even though I was thin, I was not looking like I wanted to look. I was like a skeleton, but I did still have a pouch. I still had a gut. And then I said, okay, I have to learn how to do this properly. How do who are the persons who have the best physique? Well, bodybuilders. So what do they do? They need to have a secret. So I started researching, and by the time we're talking about 2000, we had internet at last. I started researching, and I found some old school bodybuilding forums, and that's when I stumbled into this classic bodybuilder diet, which in reality is very much like a ketogenic diet. They were eating seafood or fish, beef, eggs, and basically that's it. What they were. So I started that really intrigued me. I started practicing it. I got a lot of energy back. That energy gave me again the desire to start lifting weights. Realized then that this was a ketogenic diet. There was a forum dedicated to it, but more for the purpose of strength training. I came up on a book called The Ketogenic Diet by Lyle McDonald, a famous researcher and trainer, and I sort of made that my Bible. And from there on, I started really feeling great. I decided to keep on the diet, and to make it short, I've been on this for almost 20 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I want to dive into a couple different aspects of your story, but what is it that you think led to you being overweight as a child? What were some of the factors, do you think?
Okay, so it's very basic. This was in the early 80s, and it was really a combination of factors. First, being on my ass all day playing video games. The second is eating fast food and snack food all the time. I was really eating potato chips all day long while I was watching TV. I ate, even though I don't have really that big of a sweet tooth. My family had a chocolate factory, so I had access to all the chocolates that I wanted. So there was always
Uh-oh.
yeah, there were always chocolate and stuff and so in my house. And again, I didn't.
Yeah.
That was not the biggest things that I ate, but I did ate a lot. but I preferred salty foods, right? But yeah, I was a classic 80s kid. For breakfast I had cereal, then I had snacks like we love McDonald's. Like again, an overconsumption of the wrong types of food, paired of course with low activity.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had a similar experience. Like, I was kind of the chubbier, girl in my class. And, it wasn't, I think it was around the age of 12 that I started to notice kind of a difference between myself and the other kids in class and, stepped on a scale and started, wanting to make changes. And just like you going to see a nutritionist, there just weren't a lot of resources. Like, I turned to, I think, some diet magazines, like Cosmo and stuff to try and find information. And it's like the worst kind of information. So it took me a really long time, to figure things out. And I also, it wasn't until trying kind of everything that is out there, that I kind of came to keto personally by going on Reddit and finding these like Reddit forums and like obscure forums online where I started, finding some of this information. And I heard on a podcast that's kind of how you started finding some keto info also.
Yeah, it's when I started actually was way before Reddit. So again, in the 2000s and something, we really had that much like a traditional forums like people know today. They were called bulletin boards. So it was more like archaic, right? It was more difficult to get information, but at the same time, they were just like very few people doing this stuff. So you probably got more concise information, but a lot of the information was really incorrect. It was more like passed on from people to one person to another. There were really no way to, right now, you can probably link a PubMed study, you can go in and download a book, get a lot of information that may be factual. Right now, the problem is that you have so much information and you cannot really probably distinguish between what is correct or what is not, right? At that time, we really didn't have that much information at all. So again, in my case, it was very much like you said, reading fitness magazines. I started to buy some books. I'm very much self-taught English because I wanted to understand. And like again, everything is in English, right? But yeah, Reddit was a big influence for me about 9 years ago when I first stumbled upon it, and I did find Reddit out of a pure luck, basically, because I was looking one link that led to another, and I don't know why I stumbled upon the keto board, and I started then reading and seeing, okay, this is a diet that I normally do. There were some people that were asking for help on training and doing keto, and the classic misconceptions about you cannot really build muscle on keto, that it's futile, that it's just there's no point, or that you're going to be losing lean mass if you do keto, or blah blah blah. And then I started sharing my experience and helping people. And I don't know if you're very familiar with how Reddit works, but the more when you give advice and people like it, they vote you, blah blah. And so I sort of became the go-to guy to ask for strength training and keto.
That's really cool. Sometimes I'm kind of nostalgic for those old bulletin boards. They were kind of fun. Like, you'd post something and then go back and check and like see if people replied. And it's kind of a cool, old school way of doing things. But it's amazing now. There's so many resources out there, but I think it's such a great thing, but it's also super confusing for people who come, and there's all these different voices and opinions on keto. And you founded Keto Gains. So what did you find really was the kind of drive behind founding that? And I love your slogan, which I think is, chase results, not ketones. So what's the kind of theory behind that?
So the reason why I started all this again is because I'm a very curious person. So I like to understand the whys and the hows and how everything works. There's always a reason, right? So the reason I founded Keto Gains is because I wanted to have evidence-based answer to a lot of questions people were making. So why does keto works? Is it true that you can really eat all you want while you're doing keto, or can you build muscle on keto? So I started writing like a frequently asked question page where I had all the information and all the links, first just for my use because people were asking me questions, and instead of going and looking for it, I just wanted to have a quick way to access the question, or even add more answers or more links that would benefit me and then eventually everyone who wanted to read. So that's pretty much the reason why I try to have at hand an explanation on why things work. And then also, again, I'm always questioning the explanations myself or looking for new advances or hypotheses. So this works very well again for, I'd say, any protocol. It's not just keto. Like, it can be strength training. There's an hypothesis of why things work, overall health as well. And in the to answer your question, why we have this saying of chase results, not ketones, because after being on the diet for as long as I have been, you start to notice first some misconceptions and then some adaptations. For example, misconceptions. People tend to think that, okay, keto is great and that probably you can eat all you want and you will lose weight. And the reality is that it's not that you can eat all. It's more so that probably at the first of the diet, especially, your appetite is suppressed. So yes, you can eat all you want, but probably you want less now, for example. Then another misconception is that, or it may not really be a misconception, I'd say a misunderstanding. People think that if you have high ketones, then it means that you're burning more fat. And so then you're going to be more successful. And probably that happens to some people, but not to all. Like the number of ketos you have really has no actual bearing on whether you're burning or not body fat. You can always, or you will always burn body fat as long as you are in a caloric deficit. You can have super high ketos if you eat lots of fat, but this doesn't mean that you are actually burning your own body fat. You're just metabolizing dietary fat. And then also, the more you are in the diet, the more efficient you are at using ketones. Ketones really, what any measurement says is the amount of ketones at any given time in your body. If you are very efficient at using them, then you may have lower ketones at that given time because your body is using them. If you're an inefficient person, again, people who are just starting with the diet, probably you're going to have a buildup of said ketones because your body doesn't really know how to use them properly. So again, this may be the origin of this misconception that probably you need high ketos to be burning body fat. Probably at the start of the diet, but the longer you are in the diet, your body becomes more efficient, and then you are going to have less. And then what happens with lots of people, and I saw this myself probably at the beginning, is okay, you think that you need higher ketones, but now you have lower. So you start eating more fat, for example, or fasting more, and other things that may be counterproductive. And then you start thinking about the basics. You started keto to lose weight, but then you changed it, for a time to to focus on a number, and that number is ketones. And so instead of again reviewing, for example, how much you weigh, you start to measure ketones and obsess about ketones, and then you start to find ways to increase ketone levels, most of the time via eating more fat, and then you don't lose weight anymore. And it's not because you're doing it's not because you are let me repurpose this. You lost the focus. Probably you should be a little bit more mindful about what you are eating, but as you are trying to increase ketones, you eat more fat, and so you are self-sabotaging that. And it really, for me, it's a little bit mind-boggling and sad that you go to lots of forums that, although they are maybe well-intentioned, you see people asking, I'm not losing weight, what should I do? And you see lots of people answering, eat more fat. And then they still don't get results, right? Yeah, they may be increasing their ketones, but it's because they are ingesting dietary fat. It really this doesn't work. So that's why we have this saying, chase results, not ketones, because as long as you are not eating carbohydrates, you will be in one degree or another of ketosis, and that's great. But you probably not should be focusing on ketones, rather on just getting the results you want.
All right, guys. Now I know how important high quality food is to you, and being able to provide nutrient dense food for yourselves and your families in an economical way. Now, I always brag about how spoiled I am here in Prague to have all these incredible local butchers. But when I'm back in Colorado, I really like to use a service called butcherbox.com. Now, butcherbox.com, you may have heard of them. They are a monthly meat delivery service, and they provide incredibly high quality grass fed meats in a really affordable way. You save because you don't have to go to the store and spend time buying groceries because everything is shipped right to your door, and you're also getting the highest quality meat possible. Now, ButcherBox is offering my listeners a box with 2 free beef fillets, a pack of bacon, and $20 off your first order. You can take advantage of this order by going to butcherbox.com/fast keto. That's butcherbox.com/fast keto to take advantage of this offer. I really love what ButcherBox does to save us all money and time. And being able to use their service is just like having your own local butcher and saving money, providing the best quality meat for your family. So check out that offer at butcherbox.com/fast keto. Yeah, I mean, the definition really of a keto diet is a low carb diet. Whether that low carb range can be different for different people. Some people set it at 20 grams and below based on a lot of studies, which is where I tend to fall. But it basically essentially is a starch controlling diet. That's really what keto comes down to. And I can completely relate to what you're saying because when I first started keto many years ago, I actually gained 20 pounds and just was eating all this cream cheese and cream, and I was getting these really high ketones. I was getting like 4.0, 5.0, 6.0 ketones. I was like, well, based on, what keto is, I must be deep in ketosis. So I didn't really worry about gaining weight. I just thought that automatically meant I would lose it. And then suddenly started noticing like my clothes were getting really tight. And, it took a while for me to realize what was happening because I just thought if I'm getting these ketones, I must be burning fat. So I can definitely agree with you that high ketones don't necessarily mean, fat loss is happening. Now, you first had success losing weight. You were like doing some extended fasting, or you were restricting, like you're eating quite a bit, and then it wasn't working for you. You weren't feeling good. You lost fat, but you also lost lean mass. So how did you get from there to finding what works and what works for you the best now?
So when I lost a lot of weight, it was because I was really not eating. And then again, you very much said it was. I didn't know it was called fasting because that was not that thing back then. But yeah, I was eating 2 times a day, and I was likely eating like some days 400 calories, right? So, and again, in the end, it's not really that calories are important, but also another thing that I'm glad that it's finally catching up right now, and it's called nutrient density, right? It's not the same to eat 400 or 800 calories nutrient dense foods, some protein, micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc., than just have 400 calories worth of Cheerios. In both cases, you're going to lose weight, but it's what kind of weight that you're going to be losing. So in my case, I lost a lot of weight, and a lot of that weight that I lost was muscle mass. I ended up what you call the skinny fat. So I was like, you could see my ribs, but I still had a gut. I still had a pouch. I didn't have a six pack. I was doing it incorrectly. So again, that's why I started to research what bodybuilders do. Like they are strong, they have a chiseled physique, and yet they have basically no visible body fat. So what do they do? Well, they eat adequate protein because people tend to think that protein is just for muscles, but protein is, I'd say, the most important macro because everything in your body is made out of protein: hair, nails, bones, of course, muscles, the organs, but also hormones, enzymes are made out of protein. Of course, fat is also important, but the main building block of the human body is protein. So because I was neglecting protein, and that's a big error that I see with lots of people who do keto and then fasting. They tend to restrict protein overly way too much. What happened to me is that I lost a lot of muscle, and then by changing my focus on maintaining at least a minimal amount of protein that for some or for each person may be a little bit different depending on their activity. and then eating greens. Like I used to eat carbs, but my carbs would be the most nutrient dense possible. I started to give my body what my body needed, and then this gave me energy to start strength training again, which I loved from when I was a kid. That's the only sport that I used to do, right? So by doing this, feeling great, and started to get energy to do what I liked, which is strength training, because I wanted to improve my physique, then it became very natural for me. Like I think that any diet, even if you're in a deficit, that makes you feel energized and great, and it's also healthy, it's perfect. It could be probably for some people keto, for others low carb, for others a paleo diet, for others even a vegan diet if done properly. I think that the main thing should be first that it's a very balanced diet in this aspect of nutrient density, and then that it's something that you actually like and can pursue.
I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to the nutrient density. And I think the common thread between all these different things, paleo and keto and low carb and all of that, is that it's real food, and especially nutrient dense food. And that makes all the difference.
Right now, I see this dangerous trend that is happening to keto. That is very much what happened to paleo 5 or 10 years ago. You started to see all these keto products in the supermarket, and because it has become a trending diet, people just read keto and they want to do it easily. But if you actually look at some of the products, they're just 20 years ago, they were low fat. Now they are high fat. They are keto, but again, they are using mostly processed ingredients. It's lost the magic. And it's not that I'm trying to be a purist, but you're just trading one bad diet for another. You're just eating, a candy bar, or all of these healthy foods that are labeled as health foods. In reality, they are really not so. You're not eating fresh. You're eating processed ingredients that they just overly change their main macro. It's not going to give people the success they want.
Yeah, and I love that you brought this up because I really wanted to ask you about this in particular. When I first went keto, one of the things I did is I replaced all the foods I was eating with things that looked and smelled and tasted like carbs, all these carb replacement foods. And I heard you say this on one podcast where, you were dealing with this one woman who was just basically, she had replaced kind of her high carb treats with these keto treats, but essentially they were, molecularly, they were the same when you break them down. And she just kept replacing everything with these different versions of the same thing. And you really talked about how there's this relationship with food that fundamentally has to change. And I love to ask you about that. And how does the relationship with food change for you? And how do you help people identify that and make that change?
Well, I think that first, this is because of the current society that we live in. We are constantly bombarded by adverts. You turn on the TV and you see after advert of things you should be eating. So nowadays, we are in a society that we want immediate results. We want immediate gratification. We want it's a very either narcissistic and like again we just want to be comfortable all the time. We are not able to tolerate any even a second of discomfort, right? So like normally we just want to be filled with things that make us happy and comfortable, and we don't tolerate any little distress. So in the case that you were mentioning, and very much like you said before, we come from eating desserts and things that we like, and then we start this diet, and then we find all of these equivalents that people are making. You go to lots of keto forums, and you have all these keto recipes that if you actually look at them, like you said, they are very much the same. So you have, instead of chocolate or traditional high sugar chocolate, you have fat bombs that may be even worse calorie wise. Or you have all of these keto baking ingredients. So you have people making donuts that are high fat, or cookies that are high fat and low carb. Again, I have nothing against these products if they are used sporadically. But when you see people who cannot lose weight that are eating 10 cookies like this a day, so they're probably averaging, I don't know, 5,000 calories just from these foods that are not really nutrient dense, then you realize that there's a big problem here, right? This diet should be eat as natural as possible in the sense from like we were supposed to be eating and from an evolutionary perspective. Just grab a piece of meat, you put it on the grill, you grab some vegetables, you steam them, and you eat, and that's it. And if talking about habits, when you start eating again very, I'm not saying clean because I don't like that word, when you're eating more nutrient dense foods, again, whole meats, vegetables, some dairy if you can allow that depending on your circumstance, you find that you are overly satiated all the time, not just because of keto, but there's this theory that a lot of hormone imbalances, especially leptin, etc., are because your body is really not, it's starving for nutrients. So it keeps sending you as this hunger signal, waiting for you that in the next meal you're going to be able to facilitate the nutrients that the body is missing. Because outside of some micronutrients like sodium, your body really cannot tell you exactly what you are missing. Like you're gonna see all these charts in the internet. Like if you're craving chocolate, you're missing magnesium or whatever. But in reality, that's not really true. It's not. You cannot really. How do you say this in English? Comprobate this. It's not really. Yeah, I think it's. I think this is the word I'm trying to look for. Comprobate it. What I'm trying to say is that it's a theory, but it's not. You can really make sure that that's actually what your body needs, right? But your body needs something, and you may be craving it, and most cravings are not really biological. Most of them are created by association. So what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of hormonal imbalances related to hunger are because your body is missing a nutrient, and if you're not eating nutrient dense foods, you're going to be hungry all the time,
Yeah,
right? And yeah.
that's one of the things that actually first got me to try higher protein keto, and I started doing it and experimenting that with that in the spring, and it was a lot of it coming from the work of Dr. Ben Bickman and Dr. Ted Naiman. And Dr. Naiman said something really specific about cravings, and he said that a lot of times cravings are occurring because there's inadequate protein in the day. And so the body's only way of trying to force you to get those essential amino acids and fats in is by craving things. And so, like, for cheese, for example, it's because cheese has a lot of umami in it, which is the body's way of saying, I need meat, like, I need protein, because umami is really high in meat. I still I'm having some cravings sometimes for things like in the evening, maybe I need to try higher protein. And for sure, that did it for me right away. I noticed a massive, difference. And I think I also started to think that cravings were just normal, but they're not. You don't need to be craving things if your nutrient needs are being met.
Exactly. And this is one of the examples that I put to people, and they go, okay, you're right. It's if you go to a classic all meat buffet, there, like you can eat very sensible, even if you like eat all you want, you will want much less, and you will probably be satiated for 8 hours, 12 hours, right? Whereas if you go to another place and have a super high carby food that is really not nutrient dense, you will be hungry within the hour. And yeah, this has to do with the digestive speed of protein, but also because of all the nutrients that you're giving your body. So your body digests, breaks down, gets the nutrients it needs. But again, it really changes a lot depending on what type of food you're giving your body. And you were talking about Dr. Nate Naiman. I would also suggest, and for people who are hearing this, to start looking at the work of Dr. Stu Phillips from Canada. He has a lot of studies done on protein. And also, very interesting is the protein leverage hypothesis, which talks very much about what Dr. Ted Naiman suggests. You need a certain amount of protein per day. If you are constantly under it, you will be craving protein, but you may not know that you actually need protein, right? You're just having controllable cravings. This is also a classic test that you can do. Is like if you're craving something, eat protein. If you like, and again, and not overly processed protein, like a steak or some chicken breast or chicken thighs, something that it's again real food, right? Not a protein bar or a protein shake. So eat that, and probably you're gonna stop the craving. Whereas if you eat something sweet or something that it's again not nutrient dense, you're gonna eat probably twice the amount, or or the craving is not going to go away.
Yeah, I found that in the evening, if I had initially when I first started doing this, if I had a craving for some chocolate, I would make some scrambled eggs and it immediately went away. And I think I really focused on this idea of cravings because I think that real like food independence and food freedom and all that really comes when you don't have cravings. Like if you are, doing keto and you love it, but you're having cravings or you're fixated on food, then that's not really not the point of all this, right? So I love, having that freedom from craving foods because you're fully satiated. And when I first started trying out this stuff, I did kind of what I called a high protein experiment. So I just ate as much protein as I wanted, like unlimited amounts. And I tried to even like kind of push the limit a bit. The most I was able to eat was like 183 grams on one day. And it was hard to do. And I found it amazing how quickly I would get satiated. Like you mentioned the protein, leverage satiety thing, how quickly I would get completely full, completely satisfied with a lot of protein without having that like stomach stretch, without having physical fullness. It was more just this like this other kind of fullness of satiety that I can't even really describe, that, you're like, the thought of it is repulsive.
Yeah, I understand. And the thing is, even if you stretched your stomach eating protein, again, it's not something that I'm suggesting, but even if you did, then you're probably going to be fasting. Like if you actually are one of those persons that have learned to listen to your body, like to really listen to your body, to really understand hunger, you could probably go 12 or 18 hours without eating. Whereas if you had done that without donuts and high carb foods, probably you could keep eating within an hour and hating yourself. Because I have most of our clients are women, and lots of them have a binge eating disorder in one way or another, and you get all these stories where I think a lot of people have experienced them, where they go on a weekend binge when they are eating out, within the hour and all of those crappy foods. And again, they may have an distended stomach and they keep eating. And this doesn't happen when you eat, nutrient dense foods, when you eat whole foods.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the body will always like, if you're giving it the opportunity to take in more energy, it'll always take it. But as long as its biological functional material needs are met from protein, it's going to be good. Now, I want to talk about fasting. Do you do any kind of fasting, and what is your keto diet like these days?
Put it in another perspective. I have lots of people come to me and ask me, what do you think about fasting? I change and ask them the question, what do you think about fasting? Why do you want to do fasting? And then I get this like blank stare on their faces, and it's like they don't know. They just want to do fasting without really a purpose. Like because now it's like the next in fashion or trendy thing to do in regards to diet. So fasting is great for autophagy. It's great for overall health in a way, because again, we are not really designed to be eating 24/7 and spend our whole life eating. That's not how our bodies are designed to be. But again, it has to have a purpose. So for the example, in the context of fat loss, fasting works because you're not eating. It's a way to be adherent to your diet. Yes, very much like keto, especially if you pair keto with fasting, it can help you stay on a caloric deficit, and that's great. But the dangers that I see is that lots of people are in this like contest of who has the highest ketones, who has fasted for the longest time. And again, we're losing the purpose. And the purpose of fasting, again, for most is adhering to a caloric deficit. Yeah, probably autophagy, which is great, but there's the law of diminishing returns. There comes a point where fast is not more is not better. Probably you're gonna get most of the benefits of fasting without the negatives if you fast for 12 or 16 hours, because there are some negatives of fasting, especially if you don't feed properly before or after. And one of them is muscle loss. And despite what a lots of people may say that fasting is increases human growth hormone, it does so to a point and with a purpose. And the purpose is not to grow muscle. The purpose is to maintain your organs. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, because when they post studies, they have never read the studies. The increase in in human growth hormone during fasting is not really to maintain your muscles. It's more so to maintain your organs. Your body will, especially if you're not feeding adequate protein, shave off some amino acids from your muscles and use them to maintain proper um, your organs. Muscles are not necessary for living. Your organs are. Now, yeah, you can do fasting, and there are some things to, even if you do fasting, to maintain as much muscle as possible. One would be uh, doing strength training while you're practicing your fasting, feeding adequate protein before and after fasting. But again, it's about fasting intelligently. So, and especially for women, there are also some negatives of fasting for long bouts of time, right? But yeah, there's nothing wrong with fasting if you do it properly. And to answer your question, what do I do normally? I normally wait until 11 or 12 to have my first meal. I would either have a protein feeding, either a protein shake before training if I'm short on time, or a full meal. Then I train. Then I'm going to have a very big meal, and then probably at about 5 or 6 p.m. I'm gonna have another meal. So probably between 2 or 3 meals a day during my feeding window, and I try to not fast more than 16 hours a day.
Right. And what does your keto diet look like? What are you like sort of in a regular day?
Okay, so I'm very boring. I normally eat about the same stuff every day. So it's about 3 to 4 eggs. I eat spinach, zucchini, a little bit of cauliflower, but I do get between 20 to sometimes 40 grams of carbs from vegetables mostly. I normally eat chicken or some beef, and when I can, I would also probably say 1 or 2 times a week. I love salmon or even tuna, but I try to go to a restaurant and have lots of seafood. But yeah, again, a very boring. It's mostly the same things for me. I never really bake. It's just grilled meat or on a pan. That I try to keep it very simple.
Yeah, I love doing like canned wild salmon and canned wild sardines and pull caught tuna to get like my omega 3s in quite a bit during the week, because sometimes just, baking and all that, it's just easy sometimes to just pull out like a can of sardines and like, make just something really, really quick. And I just love seafood so much. I just find it so incredibly nutrient dense and amazing.
Sardines are one of my favorite dishes and are super nutrient dense. If you want to have a meal that would be hitting probably 90% of the requirement of nutrients, would be sardines, some eggs, a little bit of spinach, and with that you're getting everything. You can make a sardine omelette, and it's very similar to salmon. But I know that the classic saying that you get on keto is that it's an expensive diet and you cannot be really eating like this. Well, there are like some very cheap alternatives like sardines, for example, if you want to get a high quality.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it has 3 to 4 times the omega 3 fatty acids in it, even to wild salmon. And if I mix it with like a little bit of mustard and or mayo, it has so much of its own fat, so you don't need a lot of mayo. But just even with mustard, it makes like a nice kind of like tuna salad, and it's so delicious and quick and easy. Now, what is your approach for someone, a lot of our audience, mostly women who are really looking to enhance their health through optimizing body composition with lower body fat percentage and stronger muscles and bones? So what's kind of your best advice for that for most women?
Okay, so first, for like what I would suggest is to not neglect protein. Women tend to normally eat less protein than they should, and this is something to consider because the older we get, we also develop a degree of leucine resistance. Leucine is one of the three branched chain amino acids, and it's the one that actually generates a muscle protein synthesis signal. It tells your body to start building muscle when you eat it. And as we age, we develop this leucine resistance. It means that we need more leucine to generate this signaling. So women tend to eat less protein, and what they actually need is to maintain or increase their protein as they age. I normally have most of our clients eating 100 up to 120 grams of protein per day, in some cases even more, depending of course on certain factors or their training, etc. But that would be the minimum that we would suggest for a woman who is over 30. And first, again, so that they don't lose muscle, and second, because it keeps them satiated. Like having 3 meals with 30 to 40 grams of protein per day is going to keep them, focused on the diet and not really having all these cravings and trying to eat things that they should not, right? And the other advice that I would give is to practice some form of strength training. Lots of women think that if they do strength training, they're going to end up looking like a She-Hulk. And that really doesn't happen. More so, like strength training is very important, especially for women, because it improves bone density. And for women, as they age, they start to lose bones. Sorry, they start to lose calcium in their bones. So one way to maintain a good calcium ratio is by doing strength training. Strength training improves bone density paired with adequate protein intake, and you have a recipe for improved health and for looking better. They want to lose weight. They really, when a woman says to me, I want to lose weight and I want to um, weigh, I don't know, 140 pounds or something, in reality, that number really doesn't mean anything. What they want is to look great naked, or to have a toned body, a firmer body. By doing strength training, they will end up looking more like a Wonder Woman rather than the She-Hulk. There's no way to really look like the She-Hulk unless you were training for 5 hours a day and taking, performance enhancers and doing some other things. It's not something that naturally happens to women.
Yeah, I agree. And I think muscle tone is what, women want to like look tight and toned in their swimsuit and their jeans, like you're saying. And, that's a combination of lowering body fat percentage and also that strength training and, increasing, muscle mass.
Exactly, and I experienced that. I already come from that, and I did all things incorrectly. I just fasted. I didn't eat protein, and what I ended up was with this skinny fat physique that it's not what people want. To get this tone look, you need a combination of adequate training and adequate protein. And the training, again, it doesn't have to be cardio. Cardio and long bouts of cardio, it's actually counterproductive for this because it only raises cortisol and stress hormones. It's catabolic. It's not really that it's going to be burning fat. It doesn't really work like people think. More is not better. If you are going to do exercise or you have very little time to exercise, it's better to do some sort of strength training rather than obsessive about doing lots of cardio. The best results that we've had with clients, and basically in our protocol, cardio is basically forbidden. And we get lots of women that are the classic chronic exercises that they spend 1 or 2 hours doing cardio, CrossFit, Zumba, uh, you know, everything all together, eating very little. And we managed to help them by reviewing their protein intake, increasing that, in some cases, increasing calories, and taking out all the unnecessary exercises that they are doing. It's just about learning to do what your body actually needs and managing stress.
Hey guys, just taking a really quick break to talk about the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. If you're interested in doing a ketogenic diet for yourself, it's a great place to start. I teach you everything about how to follow a keto diet to get yourself into nutritional ketosis, and it includes 28 days of meal plans. It comes with weekly shopping lists, how to interpret results, how to test yourself, a complete guide to getting started on keto. If you've been keto for a while and you're just not getting the results that you want to in terms of your health or fat loss, or you are brand new to keto, the 28-day challenge is a great option because it also comes with my free coaching and support in our members Facebook group, and you can post any questions that you have about the meal plans, about keto, and I am there supporting you. We have an amazing community in our group because everybody in there is so excited about following keto, about having found something that really works well for them. And everyone in there is just so kind, caring, generous, and supportive. And it's a really fun place to be and hang out. So if you'd like more info on it, you can find it at ketogenicgirl.com. And it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. And now back to our interview. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And is there a way that you help women figure out kind of their ideal protein intake?
Well, as a start, you can use about 8 grams of protein per lean pound you weight. That's like a normal our starting guideline. You could go a little bit higher, but that's what we suggest. And again, if you're over 30 years, I would suggest to get in between 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal, considering 3 meals a day.
And the best way to find out their lean mass is by doing like a body composition scan.
Okay, so there are quite a few ways to actually assess what your body fat percentage is, but the easiest way, a way that anybody can really do, is by just getting a tape measure and using the classic, it's called the NaviFat method. And if you Google NaviFat method, you're gonna probably get a few links that get you to a page where you just write your weight, your height, your neck measurement, your hips and waist measurement, and it's going to give you a very close estimation of what your body fat percentage is.
Oh, interesting. How do you spell that?
It's a Navy, like the US Navy fat method.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
It's
That'll,
again, it's not 100% accurate, but it's
yeah,
a starting point, and that's the one we use with a lot of our clients because everybody can do it at home, and it's a starting point. Of course, the most exact way to review your body fat percentage is with a DEXA scan, but it's not very feasible for most people to do it, first because either it's expensive, or second because there may not be a facility near where they live, right? And then lots of people also like to use calipers, but calipers have to be done via someone who is actually a professional.
right.
Like I don't really trust gym trainers who do calipers because are not informed on how to do so, or even worse, if you do it yourself, lots of people don't know how to apply pressure correctly. And also, depending on your body fat percentage, it's going to be very difficult. Like someone who is a little bit on the heavier side, again, it's very easy to cheat the data, right? In exchange with just a tape measure, anybody can do it.
Right.
And it will give you, again, not an exact number, but something that you can start with.
And what do you think is a great healthy body fat percentage for women to aim for if they want to be strengthening their bodies and building, bone density?
Okay, so there's actually few studies that support the notion that there is an optimal zone, both for males and for females, in which you're going to, for every pound you gain, most of it's going to be muscle. Of course, if you are doing resistance training and eating adequately, so for every pound you gain, most of it is going to be lean mass, and very little is going to be body fat. And for every pound that you lose, most of it is going to be body fat, and very little is going to be lean mass. And this is called the golden zone. This is how normally we describe it. And for females, it's in between 18 to 19% body fat, up to 24% body fat. And for males, it would be 10 points less. So about 8 to 9% body fat, up to 14% body fat. Because this is where your hormones work in favor for everything. So what we normally
Right.
suggest our clients or everybody who wants to improve their physique is first diet down or lower your caloric intake so that you, or maybe with a little bit of exercise, drop down to at least 22, 20 something body fat in the case of a female, and then maintain that body fat percentage for a while strength training. You really don't need to eat at a surplus to gain muscle. You have, it's contrary to popular belief. As long as you have body fat and you are not really in the lower spectrum of body fat, you will gain muscle as long as you train in this zone.
Awesome. Now, I think one thing I really wanted to ask you about is a lot of the women that are listening to the show are similar to myself, find going to the gym kind of intimidating, especially when you don't really know what you're doing. I used to know what I was doing when I was like in my early 20s, but I haven't been in a gym in so long. And if you're not working with a trainer, what are some things that maybe women can do even just at home with body weight exercises or things, you know, maybe if they're able to do sort of 3, 4, maybe 5 days a week, what is kind of the biggest bang for your buck that you can do just to get started and kind of get that initial inertia going and build momentum?
You have to understand. I'm a big fan of functional movement, right? And I tend to always look at evolutionary nutrition and evolutionary patterns. So if you take a look at what functional strength is, it's very much push and pull exercises for the most part. So if you really want to do something very basic, squats, which you can do at home, again, you can do air squats or wall sits, push-ups. If you have access to a pull-up bar, you can also do pulling exercises. But really, those are the basic exercises. Some leg exercises, again, squat, push-ups for a push exercise, and a pull exercise can be either done with a pull-up bar, or probably there are some exercises for your back which also involve pulling exercises, like lateral pull. You can do that even, I don't know, with a broom and putting a little bit of weight in it. Now, if you want a very basic template for this, I can send you. We have some on our website. One is a little bit more complex in regards that it requires a basic set of dumbbells or barbells, and it's called the 5x5 exercise. So it's just a set of 5 reps, 5 sets of certain combinations of pull, push, leg exercises, and it can be done again with a few kettlebells, a bar, or even dumbbells. It really depends on what you want, or even again with your body weight.
Awesome. That sounds like a really great resource. Now, do you think that there is something to be said for stubborn body fat? I get this question sometimes from people, and also kind of, are there different speeds for how fat is lost on the body? So I used to think that it kind of goes head down, but I think it also has more to do just with the percentage of most women carry more of their fat kind of in the lower body. So it's all happening at the same time on the body, but it's just that there's less up top and more down below.
Yeah, and the thing that happens is that we tend to focus on one part of our body that we want to improve, and we don't really pay attention to all the other parts, right? So when we are losing body fat, it's like you said, very much even in most areas. And for most people, when they say that they have stubborn body fat, there isn't such thing as stubborn body fat. If you're not, for example, as a female under 20% body fat or 19, you don't have stubborn body fat. You may have probably more skin in that area, probably because you come especially from being overweight. But again, there's nothing that you can really do to spot reduce unless you do a liposuction. And again, if you are someone who is 25 or over body fat, and they say I have stubborn body fat, It's sorry, you don't have stubborn body fat. You just have body fat.
Right.
No, that's for real. The stubbornness is probably in the person that doesn't want to accept that.
Yeah, I thought that's what
And
you.
the same happens to males. Like lots, I have lots of clients that probably think they have stubborn body fat, and when I actually look at the pictures and so on, it's no. You probably need to lose another 3 or 4 pounds, and that's it. That's it's a sad truth, but that's exactly what it is.
Right. Right. Now, my last question for you is, what is your opinion on this whole carnivore trend and zero carb?
It's you said it. It's a trend. I think that it's a feasible protocol and it works for a lot of people because, very much like we said before, it's an elimination diet and it's going to keep people adherent to one protocol. So, what I see with lots of people who start keto is that over time, as they start more confident with the diet, they start adding things that they should not be adding. Again, some protein bars, some keto desserts, etc. And then by doing carnivore, what happens is you are again restricting to just a type of food, and there's really no way that you're going to probably go out of your way to overeat on it. I know there are people who have gained weight on carnivore in the context of maintaining low body fat. Okay, so yeah, I know lots of people who have not managed to lose weight on carnivore or to even gain. Why? Because they're eating a little bit more than they should. But I do think that it may work for a while in the sense of, for example, it's an elimination protocol. People who may have issues with some vegetables, they can probably try it for a while and see if they like it. But again, as is with any other diet, if they do it properly, in the sense that if you're doing carnivore, you also need to ingest quite a few micronutrients, watch your sodium intake, do eat organ meats, and make sure that you're not missing on any micro. If you're going to be doing carnivore just with chicken breasts, I don't think it's going to be the best diet because some people do it like that, right? If you're going to do carnivore, eat the whole animal. So this means eat organ meats, eat bone broth, eat a variety of meats, and that's how you are supposed to do it. And then again, don't be a seaload and try to nothing happens if you eat sporadically some vegetables just to increase again nutrient density. And very much in my case, I'm not full carnivore, but I may go days where I'm just eating just meat, right? Because probably that day I didn't really feel like making a big salad or I didn't have anything at hand. But again, if you do it intelligently, it's okay. But ask yourself, as with any other diet, why? You're doing this for fat loss. I don't think it's the only way to do it. You could probably try it. If it works for you because you're being adherent to the diet, more power to you, but it's not a magic diet. I tend to not really like going all the way to one spectrum. I do believe that some micros are better gotten from some vegetables, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely agree. Now, I know I asked you this early in the show, but kind of want to leave off on a note of changing your relationship with food because I think it's such an important part of having not just, there's fat loss and then there's maintaining that fat loss over time. So, what do you think helped you the most in maintaining or, sorry, changing your relationship with food?
I think the biggest thing here is focusing on eating real food and not looking for substitutes. I can recommend a book. I'd say everyone who is serious about diet should read Wired to Eat by Rob Wolf because it really explains all these little nuances on how we basically wire ourselves to keep eating and to have cravings. The moment you start breaking these cycles of eating processed foods and adding all these flavors that make you want to eat more, is the moment you're going to be most successful with any diet because you're going to start really listening to what your body tells you. We are the only animal that doesn't have this instinct to eat adequately what we need, right? We eat because there's something just in front of us, even when we are not hungry. And most animals will just eat when they are hungry, and they know exactly what they need to eat, right? Where we humans have lost that innate sense of of distinguish what we need to eat and when we need to eat. We just eat because we're bored, because we're sad, because we want to celebrate. We don't eat really because of hunger. We've lost that.
Right. And reconnecting with that intuitive sense of nourishing your body. I really love that. Now, what can people look out for you? What are you sort of the most excited about right now? I saw you just released an electrolyte supplement that looks awesome. What can we look out for from
Okay,
you?
so basically, we're very good friends with Rob Wolf. And a few years ago, Rob was not doing keto anymore, or not that profoundly, because he was really not feeling well when he was training. He does Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right? So, what we found is, especially with our clients, is one of the main reasons people don't feel well, don't perform well, and drop out of keto is because they get the classic keto flu, right? And this can be really overcome by having your adequate electrolytes during the day. People are really afraid of ingesting sodium because we've been told that it's bad for us. Then potassium is something that people really don't supplement adequately, or they don't eat enough vegetables for it, or don't eat adequate kind of food. And magnesium, depending on what country do you live, it's not really easy to get by. Like you may get magnesium, the type of that only causes you to go to the bathroom. But normally we may suggest, for example, magnesium citrate, which is really not easily obtainable, for example, here in Mexico. So by talking to Rob, I suggested him to get this electrolyte mix that is basically before you train, use 1 or 2 grams of sodium, a little bit of potassium, some magnesium, and let me know how you feel. And he started using that, and then he came back to me and said, "Whoa, this is a game changer! And now I can train and stay on keto without being anxious and without being hungry. And probably this is the missing link for me." And this was basically a recipe that we had been sharing with a lot of our clients. It's even our website. And so a few years later, basically, um, I was chatting again with Rob and Tyler, who works with us, who's my business partner, and we were thinking, okay, so people keep asking us for ideas on how to, get your electrolytes correctly. And even though the formula is out there, and you just have to use salt and magnesium and potassium at some quantities, people are still not getting this. So why don't we make it readily available for everyone in convenient packets so that everyone can probably take them before training, or if you travel, you just have it ready to use. And we said, okay, let's go for it. And that's what we did. And that was about 10 months in the making, and now it's ready for sale. So it's just the proper doses of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, backed by evidence according to what the actual needs of the human body are. And we really went all out of our way to make it totally natural with no artificial ingredients added, because we know that our clients, that's basically what they want, right?
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. I definitely want to check that out, and congratulations on creating that.
Thank you. I'm gonna send you a packet sample. We ship
Oh, that's
worldwide, so I don't think it's going to be an issue getting it on your end.
awesome. Awesome. Well, Luis, I know I'm going to have to invite you back on in the future because we had a bunch of questions for you that came in through social media, and I barely was able to just cover the ones that I had on my list. So I really appreciate you being so generous with your time and sharing all your expertise and knowledge and passion with us. And it was such a pleasure to have you on with us today.
Thank you for having me, Vanessa.
A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risk risks or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian.